This is More Than Money with Mapalo Makhu, brought to you by Sasfin Wealth.
Welcome to More Than Money. I'm Mapalo Makhu, a personal finance columnist, and I love having money conversations that change people's perspective about finances. Why am I doing this podcast, you might ask? To talk about money. Not the paper stuff. I mean the baggage, the feeling, the emotional, heart-wrenching stuff. We find this conversation so uncomfortable to have, which is why on this podcast, I have decided to have this very difficult conversations. We are going to have some difficult discussions because better money conversations lead to better money confidence, and healthy money dialogue leads to healthy money decisions. Schalk Bezuidenhout is a celebrated South African comedian known for his unique blend of humor and storytelling. His comedic talents have made him a household name in the entertainment industry. Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with Schalk to discuss his experiences and insights into managing money. Thank you so much for joining me, Schalk.
Hello. I wish I knew before it was about managing money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken this interview.
Well, now that you are here, you are forced to talk
now I'm
about
going to be
money.
exposed.
We're going to be exposed, but in a good way.
I think in comparison to a lot of people, I'm actually very good with my money. I'm actually very good.
Is that so? That is wonderful. And I cannot wait to hear all about it.
I think so.
Based off what you've just said, what makes you think that you are good with money?
I think it's just because, my parents really drilled that idea of saving into me from a very young age. And also my pocket money when I was young was my age plus a zero. So if I was 10, it was 100 Rand a month.
Yeah.
11, so it only went up by 10 Rand. But when you matric, then you start, now going, you're 18, so you can go out with your friends, you go to the movies, and then 180 Rand really doesn't last long.
Yeah.
So I would 1 month be very conservative with my 180 Rand, maybe only spend 50 Rand so that I have more than 300 for the next month, so then I can go to a movie and go ice skating.
I absolutely hear you, and I think definitely that makes you good with money. But let's go back to your childhood. You mentioned your parents, which I absolutely loved because so much of our perception of money and the lessons we learn are from our parents, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think they drilled the savings culture into you so much? What was happening when you were growing up? What conversations were your parents having about money?
Well, I think growing up middle class, you really, I think, learn to save because we weren't living hand to mouth. Definitely not. Okay, I was privileged in the sense that my parents could send me to university, but it was something that needed to be considered. So it's not something that in matric we decide Schalk is going to university. It was in grade 8 it gets decided. Okay, if your marks are good enough, you're going to go to university. Because just with my parents' salaries, if they didn't plan something, it wouldn't happen. Even our December holiday, we didn't go on lavish holidays, but we managed to hire a small flat in Umhlanga. But that wasn't something that could be decided in November. Already in January, February, we decided, okay, we want to go to Umhlanga in December, so now we consider that. We don't splash every month, and if we do a holiday somewhere else in the year, it's maybe somewhere cheap, like camping or something, so that we can have the holiday in Umhlanga. And I guess just seeing my parents work like that with money, it makes you work like that as well. And I think now my parents are retired. Now it's interesting because now they have a pension and a payout, and now it's that thing of still needing to save because they're now 66 and 67. So they still might live to 80.
Yeah.
So you can't live as if you're going to die tomorrow. But at the same time, you shouldn't save so much that you don't enjoy your money. Because now that you are retired, now they have the opportunity to, for example, we've never seen the Karoo. So that's what they did the other day. We've never driven through the Karoo, stopped in all these little beautiful dorpies that we've seen on TV. Let's go do that. And I, in my own life, try and find that balance between saving, but also enjoy your money. So when I chat with my friends about it, I always say like, I don't want to get hit by a bus tomorrow and then I've got all these lack of savings, but I never actually enjoyed the money. So I try and have a 50-50 balance between saving, but also sometimes I do just want to walk past a shop and see something lekker and be like, yeah, it's a bit pricey, but you know what, screw it, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it because I work hard for my money and I want to enjoy it as well.
Do you remember your first paycheck? And do you remember what you did with it?
I do remember my first paycheck because it was, look, so when I started stand-up comedy, normally you start as an open spot.
Yes.
So that is an unpaid spot on the lineup. Basically, it is expected, and I don't disagree with this. I think it's right that you learn that sort of hierarchy in comedy.
Yes.
You are supposed to be grateful that you are just on stage. And I was. And I was very grateful. And also because you get to perform. Like, I mean, when I started out, if Eugene Koza, if he was the headliner and I'm the open spot, I would think, wow, but I'm getting to perform with Eugene Koza. And Eugene Koza is going to see my set. How cool is that? He's going to see me perform. Normally there was no payment. In fact, you're spending money because you may be taking a taxi to the show and you have to get home as well. And also you would buy maybe a black label or two at the gig. So you're spending money. But now and then, if it was a lacquer pub with a lacquer owner, he would say, hey, you did so well tonight. Why don't you order yourself a cheeseburger and a draft? It's on us, you know, so you got paid in food. Now and then they'll give a 50 or $100, which obviously doesn't go very far away. It was more gesture for petrol money. My first paycheck, I remember, it was at a place in Kempton Park. I'm from Kempton Park. A place called Rock Paradise. And there's a comedian who had a gig there every Friday afternoon. And he said to me, it pays 4,000 Rand. Now, I'm a first year student at this point. Now, 4,000 Rand is absolutely insane. It felt like R1 million. But I had to do 40 minutes of material. At that stage, I did not have 40 minutes of material because you had to do 20 minutes, then there's a break, then another 20 minutes. And I said, can you book Mpo Pops to do the other 20 minutes? And then he gets 2,000 Rand for 20 minutes, and then I get 2,000 Rand for 20 minutes. But I also didn't have 20 minutes. I only had 10 minutes of comedy. But I thought if I just do my 10 minutes really slowly, then I can stretch it to 20. But I didn't want to lose out on 2,000 Rand. 2,000 Rand still felt crazy. It still felt crazy. Then they eventually let me know, okay, no, we're not going to get another comedian, but it's fine. You can just come do your 20 minutes for 2,000 Rand. Closer to the time, I found it strange that there's this place called Rock Paradise in Kempton Park that I've never heard of. And I thought, how's this possible? I grew up here all my life. How have I never heard of this place? It's also quite close to my house. Then I find out closer to the time, Rock Paradise is a strip club that I just never heard of. So it's a strip club called Rock Paradise. It's like an old house that they have changed into a strip club. And I go to the strip club. My dad goes with me because when I told him I'm performing at a strip club, he was like, I have to see this. I have to see this. So he comes with me, but the gig is 2 PM. Anyway, long story short, the gig went terribly. There was no one there. I think my dad was the only one actually watching the show. The other 2 or 3 men that were there, each had a stripper on the lap. They were not concerned with me. And then there were probably 2 men, but like 10 strippers. So only 2 strippers were tending to the 2 men, but the other 8, you know, didn't have anything to do. And they felt so sorry for me. This was a beautiful example of performers coming together, supporting each other, because they felt so sorry for me because I was dying so badly on stage that they brought chairs and sat right in front, and they formed like a front row. And they all laughed extra loud to try and encourage me and support me and clap and went crazy. So it was a terrible gig, but I remember coming off stage being like, I don't even care because I'm getting 2,000 Rand. And they gave me like this nice fat envelope, 2,000 Rand in. And the first thing I did, because I was like, I don't want to spend it. I just want to save all of it. But then I was like, I'm going to treat myself. And I went and bought myself a double rum and coke. Spent like whatever it was, $100 on a double rum and coke. And then I took the other 1,900 Rand home and sort of, I think I went and put it in the bank.
So you've had this savings back for a very, very, very long time. So how do you think, as a comedian, as you've grown in your career, of course, how do you think that has been an advantage for you? Do you have some sort of way to manage your finances to say, whatever I get, 10% goes towards my savings or investments? Is there some sort of a formula you have going on?
No, I sort of live my life throughout the year, and I just let the money accumulate. But sometimes there's big chunks coming in, because like if you do an advert, for example, you know, that can often be a nice big chunk. But then there's also sometimes a big chunk going out. Like for example, when I do the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which I just came back from, which is in August. I mean, it's an overseas festival. I have to book flights and accommodation for myself. Now, those two together is almost 100,000 Rand. So in the space of maybe 2 days, I'm booking flights to Edinburgh and back, and also an Airbnb for a whole month in a place where everyone puts up their prices during the festival because there's a big influx of people. So then, you know, there's examples like that where suddenly in 2 days I'm spending 100,000 Rand. And I'm also very stupid when it comes to, I just always forget about provisional tax. So at the end of August, I always just get this message from my accountant. Hey, please log into your FNB profile. I've set up the e-payment. You just have to go accept it. And then you're like, that just screws up your plan for the year. So I just live my life throughout the year, but I live quite conservatively. I've paid off my bond, you know, like, so I don't have big expenses. I don't have a fancy car. Our house is nice, but it's not very fancy that my rates and taxes and levies are super high. I've got all the insurances, but quite just normal insurance, you know. So then at the end of the year, I will look at what is in the bank account. And then I will say, okay, I want to keep this much, just, you know, to live off. But then the saving, I will split between about 3 investments that I have. Like obviously sometimes the one does better than others. And then you start all over again. And then obviously some years you're putting more into investments than other years.
So you have opened for Trevor Noah. How important is it to have relationships that can help you maximize your income? And what has that relationship been like? Not even just with Trevor, but just relationships overall.
It's very important, but, you know, something that I also learned in Edinburgh especially is that, because, you know, in Edinburgh, there's all these artist bars, you know, and it's often very like la-di-da and pretentious, and everyone's there and everyone's like, how's your show? But no one really cares. Obviously, as the artist, we get encouraged. You have to hang out in the artist bars. You need to meet people and so on. But in my experience, if you are funny, people are gonna take notice and people are gonna use you for things. Like I could be the coolest guy, right? And Trevor might love to hang out with me or think that, you know, backstage I'm a fun guy to be around. But at the end of the day, if I don't deliver the goods, and that is being funny on stage, I'm not going to get chosen to be an opening act. So, you know, I think sometimes people get a bit lost in working so hard to just be at all the events and all the parties and mingling with people. But I mean, you're not getting booked because you're a lacquer guy and you're social. That's not why people book you. They book you because you're funny. Then yes, of course, if they book you because you're funny, then yes, obviously you try and just like build a bit of a relationship with that person, and you try and get in as many lacquer chats as you can. But at the end of the day, my focus is every time on stage, I need to try and kill it as hard as I can. That's the thing that gets you somewhere. You know, I mean, you could go to 0 parties and mingle with 0 people, but if you kill it on stage, every time people see you, you're gonna get the Netflix specials, you're gonna get, because people want to use people who are good. It's just as easy as that.
You are listening to More Than Money, a podcast collaboration brought to you by Sasfin Wealth. At Sasfin Wealth, we empower our clients to reach their global investment goals, to retire with dignity, and to leave a lasting legacy. If you would like to have real money conversations, visit sasfin.com/wealth and talk to us. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Now, let's talk about the time you fumbled the bag. Have you fumbled the bag before? And when was it and what was happening?
I think the worst mistake I've made with money was at some stage, I had a car that my parents, when I was at university, they bought me a car.
Yeah.
And it was my cousin's car, and she gave it to us for a really good price. I think it was 90,000 Rand, but it was still like basically a brand new car. And I drove that car. It was a Toyota Auris. I drove it for very long. And then eventually I was at a point where I'd graduated. I was now making my own money. And I decided I want to get rid of the Toyota Auris. So I sold it to We Buy Cars. And I want to use that money to now buy a vintage car. I just thought it was really cool. I want a vintage car.
Yeah.
So I bought like an old Mercedes 230. And just going into vintage cars was like financially the biggest mistake that I've made, because you're spending a lot on vintage cars. You buy it maybe for cheaper, but what you're going to pay anyway on a new car, you're going to spend on your vintage car. Because also there's no aircon. So now I'm arriving at meetings like sopping wet. I stink like petrol. I would always have a migraine because, you know, that petrol, that strong petrol smell, it gives you a headache. Yo. And then like I also lived in Cape Town at the time. Then it's like, so you have to drive with the windows open to get, you know, to get some ventilation in there. But then sometimes it's pouring with rain, and now you're driving with the windows open, it's raining in. It's a mess. Then I got rid of the Mercedes, but I still had this itch in me. And you know, and sometimes it's okay to make mistakes with money. But if you've got an itch that you need to scratch the itch, get it done with, make the mistake. Like, for example, a lot of people, you go overseas, you want to stay in a 5-star hotel. If you really have that itch, book the 5-star hotel. You'll probably realize it was twice as expensive as a 4-star hotel, but not twice as nice. Next time I'm just going to stay in a 4-star hotel again or whatever. Then after the Mercedes, I bought, and I know people who know cars are going to go, oh, what were you thinking? But I know nothing about cars, so I didn't know. But I bought, I think it was a 1982 Porsche 924 Turbo.
So you are still doing the whole vintage thing, even after the first time it didn't go so well?
Yes, but I thought, look, this is a Porsche. A Porsche is top of the range. And I thought, where can you buy a Porsche for 180,000 Rand? A Porsche is 1 million Rand. So, I'm getting a massive bargain. And I think I got 60 for the Merc. I had a good year, and I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pay in 130,000 Rand. Needless to say, that Porsche lasted a month. I eventually sold it back to the guy, foot stewards, for 100,000 Rand. So I lost the 60 grand of the Merc that he gave me off, and 30,000 Rand. But like I said, scratch the itch. After that, I got a brand new car. I bought a Suzuki Jimny with a service plan, paying it off monthly through the bank, and I will never get a vintage car again in my life.
What are some of the good decisions you think you have made so far? And I mean, you are a very consistent person. You said you live below your means, but something that you can think of and you say, you know what, that was a really good decision financially.
So I had an investment that I still have, but at some stage in COVID, like 2020, 2021, all investments were just doing so bad. I think the investment was supposed to be averaging like between 10 and 12% a year, and it was doing like 3.5%. I mean, it was not even keeping up with inflation. So I was actually almost losing money in that regard. So I then bought a house, but, took out a bond, did all the stuff, paying it off monthly through the bank. And then I realized, but in the long term, what I will save, if I now take some savings that I had in my bank account and just pay off, push it all into my bond, I will save more there than what I will make if I put that money in my investment. Then obviously, I phoned the guy who's in charge of that investment and tell him this. But those guys, they obviously want to push for you to put the money in the investment
Keep
rather.
it there. Yes, of course.
So even though the maths made perfect sense, it's like, yes, okay, technically you will, but he will still find a way to say, yeah, but just think of this and it will recover. Yeah, and then you feel like maybe I'm being stupid to not listen to his advice. But I think that is the best thing I did, was just to pay off the house. And it's such a nice feeling when the only debit order coming off is basically the admin fee of having the home loan account, which is 69 Rand a month. I'm not talking about the rates and taxes and levies, because that will be there even if you are still paying off the house. That will always be there. But like the only thing of the house that I'm paying is 69 Rand a month to just keep the bond account. So I was quite proud of myself for that one, because, I'm not a maths or numbers person. So I'm quite proud of myself for that one.
No, you know what, Schalk? I'm very proud of you. And I think especially if you're an entertainer where sometimes income is not consistent, having your house paid off truly just gives you the freedom to do what you need to do, right? And not worry too much.
But then I also spend money on, for example, stuff that I think most people would say, this is ridiculous, this is stupid, it's a waste of money, okay?
Yeah.
I've got 2 dogs. They are my everything. They are like my children. I love them with all my heart.
Yeah.
So our apartment has a small little garden at the bottom, which is basically just big enough for them to be able to use the toilet. But it's not big enough for them to run around. And they are 2 still young rescue dogs. They need to be able to get out their energy. And especially in the week, my wife and I are too busy. We cannot take them to the park every day. Often I'm traveling, so I'm not there. So they go 5 days a week. We just call it school, but they don't learn anything there. So it's more of a daycare. They go to doggy daycare 5 days a week. And then it became such a mission for us to take them to doggy daycare every day. And then we found a service called the Fur Kids Ferry, which is a mini doggy school bus. It's like a van, comes to pick up the dogs every morning and then takes them to school. The guy comes into the yard. They know him by now. His name is Lovemore. They absolutely love him. And then he comes, he gets the dogs, puts them in the school bus, takes them to school, brings them back in the afternoon. Now, my one friend, Benny, he once asked me, how much in total do you pay a month for your dogs to go to the daycare plus the transport, which I'm not willing to say. And my friend Benny is just like, dude, no. He's like, no. You can basically pay for a child's school fees with that. And I'm like, but Benny, that is something that I love, that I enjoy spending money on, and that is my right to do so. Benny has a bakkie. So he will spend a lot of money on kitting out the bakkie, and then, because he loves camping. So he puts a roof rack on the bakkie so he can camp on top of the bakkie. And then if you open the back of the bakkie, there's a little fridge in there and little drawers that come out. And then it folds open like this, and then it's a table. Yeah. So that's something that for me, that's something stupid to spend money on because it's not my interest. But for him, he's like, I love spending money on that. Yeah. Or he loves building stuff himself. So he spends money on power tools. So, every person will have something in your life. If it's important to you, it's worth the money. Don't let other people say, no, that's so stupid, it's a waste of money. They probably have stuff that they spend money on that you would see as a waste of money. Yes. So each to their own.
You mentioned something there that yourself and your wife obviously get quite busy. Did you guys discuss money at the beginning of your relationship? Did you discuss who will be responsible for what? What are the money conversations in your house with your wife?
To be honest, no, we didn't discuss that before we got married. But it wasn't that important to me because I knew we would figure it out together. And we are both fair and understanding people. I didn't foresee any surprises. That now suddenly we get married and she expects this and then I expect something totally different. Yeah, we are now in the process of getting like a joint account for the house. And, maybe there's a month where she earns double what I earned. Then that month she maybe puts in a bit more. Another month she has a quiet month, I have a good month, then I put in a bit more. I mean, you know your relationship, you know the person you are marrying. Sometimes you feel, okay, maybe we must have these conversations before. But with us, I just knew we would figure it out. Maybe that's a bit naive of me to think. To this point, there hasn't been anything awkward. Yeah, we are figuring it out, and there's no fights or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's also a balance, with marriages, is that I feel like it can become dangerous if you go to what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Then it becomes too like, it doesn't feel like you're a team, because now that's supposed to be the thing that marriage represents, is now we are one. But now it's still like, no, this is my stuff, this is my stuff. But I also feel it's dangerous to go, my money's your money. Because like the dog example with me and Benny, now maybe I'm spending our money on stuff that she thinks is stupid. And she's like, why are you spending, that's our money, why are you spending it on that? It's like, well, that's important to me. And same with her. I might think that, okay, she loves Zara. So I might think that one pair of pants from Zara is enough a month. And then she comes home with 3. And now I'm saying, but you're spending our money. Why did you buy 3 pairs of pants from Zara? So it's also important that each person has their own money that they can spend on whatever they want. So if she's like, I did a big shop at Zara, but I spent my money on that. It's like, yeah, cool, do what you want. It's your money. But then there's certain things that we spend together. Yeah.
What are your fears about money?
That it will run out? No, not really. Like I said, I save and stuff. And I always know that there will be some degree of work. Even if maybe in 5 years I'm not earning as much, it might go through a dip and I think it will pick up again. And then there might be a year where you earn more than you've ever earned. And then the next year could be the lowest you've ever earned. But my fear about money, and the thing that I try and stay the most aware of, is the person it can turn you into. I think money can bring out the ugliest side of people.
Yeah.
And I think to keep that sort of humbleness and niceness and all the qualities I like about myself, I never want that to change because of money.
Yeah.
Money in our world is power. And some people might think, okay, I've got a lot of money, so I am more powerful. And that is when people start getting oppressed. That is where a lot of the injustices of the world happens. I mean, wars. It's just who can pump in the most money, and eventually it just becomes money, and that becomes an obsession. I always try and just keep perspective on, yes, like everyone else, to an extent I am chasing money, but I think I'm chasing success. With that comes money. And I'm not going to lie, yes, I want to get to a point where I fly business class because economy is cost, I do want that. I can't lie. I can't lie and say, I'm happy in economy.
Yeah.
Yes, for now I am, but I mean, there's goals. There is goals in life. I can't wait to get to that day where I can buy my business class ticket.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that day. And I'm working hard to be able to achieve that. So business class is a good example because you go, okay, I want business class. But sometimes you also need to take a step back and get perspective and go, wow, but how privileged am I actually just to be able to fly overseas, or just to be able to go overseas? Even if it is in economy class. I don't think it's unhealthy to chase money and success and that stuff necessarily, but I think you constantly need to be taking a step back, getting perspective on the important things in life. Because a lot of businessmen, it's way more healthier. It's seen now as success is having a successful business, but also spending time with your family. Yeah. I think back in the day, let's say the 90s, success was viewed as the guy who's at the office at 4 a.m. and only leaving at 8 p.m. and sleeping at the office. That was seen as success, Yes, he never sees his kids, but check how much he's at the office. Now things have shifted. Now it's like, no, the guy who's at the office at 7, but before that he's done a run, he helped get the kids ready for school. That's seen as success.
Yeah.
So, I think just trying to keep perspective of the bigger picture and the real important things in life. Yeah.
As an entertainer, you have to negotiate a lot when it comes to pay. How do you actually set your prices? Because I know it can be a very challenging one, especially if you're just starting out.
Yeah, I would say the best advice I have for up-and-comers is that try as soon as possible get an agent that can do that for you. Because I love my agent so much because she's so knowledgeable and she's so good at saying like, listen, I think giving a discount here is worth it. These are nice people. They're not just trying to screw us by getting a discount, because there are sometimes companies, this is a huge company. They have no reason to ask for a 2,000 Rand discount, but they're literally just seeing where they can come right, you know?
Yeah.
So, and she's so good at distinguishing, I think this is worth it. Or she'll say, I think these people are taking the piss. Come on, seriously. You know, but at the end of the day, you want to be focusing on your art, and an agent is a whole job career on its own. And the same way that I wouldn't trust her to come do my show, why would I think that I could do her job as well as her? You know, that she is the expert in that area. I'm the expert in my area. And you need to try and, you know, create a team. Get people that can do it for you. So that's one thing I found very valuable, because also then you can really focus on just writing good jokes, and then the better jokes you write, the quicker your career will skyrocket anyway. Also, it's such an interesting thing talking about money. If you call me and say, how much do you want? And I go, 1,000 Rand.
Yeah.
You know, that sounds greedy. It's like ugly. And then the client will say, yes, see, that's Schalk. He wants a lot of money, eh? But now, just because it's someone else, just because it's my agent that says, Schalk charges 1,000 Rand. Suddenly, it just has a completely different ring to it. It now sounds professional. You know, it doesn't sound like you the one going, money, 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 give me, give me, give me. You know, so also you want to put up a barrier between you and the client. It just makes it feel more professional.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even if you go to the shop and you buy a Coca-Cola, you're not giving Coke the money, you're giving it to Pick n Pay or to Spar. I mean, it would feel different if there was someone from Coke standing there, gimme, 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 gimme the money, you know. I think having that sort of face that it has those awkward conversations for you, because it's not lacquer to talk about money, it's always awkward. Yeah, it's just not a conversation that you want to be having as the artist. And then the other thing, because obviously you and your agent then chat.
Yes,
your agent will call you, okay, they want a 50% discount. What do you think? And at some stage, I just always wanted to take any work that comes my way. But you do reach a point, every artist is going to reach it at some stage, where you also have to stick to your guns and set yourself a minimum and say, listen, I cannot go lower than this. That is not something that I'm willing to go lower on. Except, obviously, it's an exception if it's like a wonderful charity event or stuff, you know. I'm not talking about that, but just events in general.
Yeah.
At some stage, you have to draw a line. Otherwise, every single date in your diary is just going to be full. And also because a lot of artists, you hate people thinking you're a poopball. So then you just say, okay, fine, I'll do it for the discount, because it's such a big fear of mine that I say, no, sorry, I can't offer a discount. And then that person goes to 10 other people and says, yeah, no, that's Schalk Bezuidenhout. He's such an asshole. He didn't even want to give us a discount. We asked so nicely. And there's a point where you also have to go, well, that's out of my control. If they do respect my decision, fine. But also if they go to a bunch of people and badmouth me, that's also fine. But that's something you don't have control over, and you just need to accept that.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with us and letting us in on how you make decisions around money and personal finance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is really fun. You know, normally talking about money is very awkward, but this wasn't awkward at all. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
This was a Sasfin Wealth podcast. Visit sasfin.com/wealth for more information.